game time again, and here we are, your favorite three old-time officials. And welcome to the Three Blind Mice podcast. I'm here with my buddies as always, Jimmy Borgia, sounds like Georgia, and Don Nardo Nardecchia. And we have some very good topics today. We're going to be going over a tribute to some fallen brothers in stripes, a tip of the cap to a local football coach that's just entered into the Hall of Fame. And we also have, because it's timely in that time of year, some basketball camp topics that are related to what we would do or talk about during a camp that we would put on that we did for approximately 18 years here in the big city of Norwalk, Ohio. So welcome to the show. How you doing this afternoon, Jimmy and Don? What's going on?
We're trying to beat the heat up here in Norwalk. Don said it was a little cooler down south, but
a little cooler here. But our turn comes this weekend.
Yeah.
So and then in summer, and so we expect it to be 91, 92 here. Okay.
So here we go, guys. We're going to tip it off with a tip of the cap to a local longtime football coach. And one of the guys that turned the St. Paul program around here in Norwalk, and the newest inductee into the Ohio Coaches Hall of Fame. John has been around the program for quite a while. I can't remember exactly how many years at this point because I've known him forever. I know Don and I have both worked his games. I've had a lot of great run-ins with John. I mean, he's even pulled me and Don aside on a Saturday morning before a JV game to review some film with him about the game the night before and some questionable decisions by the guys in stripes during those games. So, Jim, what do you think about your buddy John being into the Hall of Fame?
I just talked recently with John, and I says, a matter of fact, when I was up there, I was taking one of our books to the spring fling, and had put this book on a raffle to raise some money for the church. And as I was leaving, I just happened to see John, was talking to him about it, and he said, well, I'd like to get one. And I hustled out to my car, brought one back in, he bought right then. And I haven't seen John since, but John was about the time starting coaching up at St. Paul, about the time I was helping to do junior high football. I always had made a comment that if I ever had a job where I could get out and help junior high, I would, because, hey, when I was in junior high, somebody was there helping to be there to coach me, and that would be going back to good old Bob Lippert, back in the day when I was in school.
Back in the day, yes,
and
sir.
Yeah, and Don too. But I just happened to get a phone call saying, hey, we need some help this year, and that time I had talked to my girlfriend, and I had hung up. I said, let me get back to you. And she asked me what was it all about. And I told her, she said, well, go ahead and do it. And so I did it. And I'd done it for 2 years. My son happened to be the ball boy. And then the following year he was on the team. And, some people think, your son's on the team, you give him special treatment. No, I was harder on him than I probably was on the whole team put together. He made comment one night, and I told him that him and his buddies had to do some laps. But no, I got in touch with John a couple of times after, and he asked me if I needed anything, equipment or anything, to let him know. And at that time, Ed Suzeski, he was equipment manager and everything else that he did for John when he first started out. And we'd lost him, good God, I'm thinking probably in the neighborhood pretty close to 15 plus years ago. And Eddie, he made sure I had what I needed. And, anytime I ended up getting it so we could get the Thursday night game under the lights and stuff. And John had a lot to do with helping helping get that and stuff. But yeah, John was a pretty good guy, and even though he played at Norwalk High, we forgive him for that. And
Yeah.
that's about pretty much what I got to say. And, as John is the AD, he got together and helped us out with some of the other stuff. So not only a football coach, but the AD and stuff too. So.
Oh yeah.
Congratulations, John. Well put, and got us back on the map where we were back when Coach Godfrey was here, back in my day, and Don. So,
all right, Nardo.
Congratulations.
What do you think?
Well, I just got to say one thing that about John playing at Norwalk High. His position coach was Steve Gilbert, and Steve's a member of the Coaches Hall of Fame. And I think I had heard through John that Steve Gilbert had quite an influence on him, and kind of in the back of his mind, he wanted to work with young men like Coach Gilbert does, and did. So good to him for that. And that guy you see presenting him his plaque from the Coaches Association is
Tommy Baker.
Tom Baker was a graduate of Plymouth High School, and he and John were roommates as they played football together down Ohio Northern. So when John got the head coaching job here, his old buddy Bakes got a job at St. Paul's teaching, and the two of them were together for, I think, just about all of the years that he was the head coach. So I think that was one of those stories. I also saw a picture of a boatload of guys that were assistants under John. And let's face it, at St. Paul, the pay as a football coach is not that great, and the pay for the assistants is less. But the guys that John surrounded himself with just made each other better. They all wanted to strive and set an example for the young men on hard work and pregame preparation and whatnot. And John just gave his all, and so did the kids. So did the kids that he played for. And as an official, Rick said we got to see the other side of John. He was very protective of the Firelands Conference. And what I mean by that is I can remember on a Saturday morning after a Friday night game, we had the JV game at Norwalk down at Winnie Field, and they were playing South Central. And South Central they maybe had 12 kids that they brought, and they didn't have a large squad to begin with. And he said to me that I don't care what you do. This game's got the potential. We've got the potential to probably score every time we get the ball, but I do not want you to let us score over 50 points. I said, I don't care what call or where on the field you call it, but don't let us. We do not need to score in the 50s. And he just always saw that as a number that was very, very. I don't know what the best word is. I mean, you can get beat, you can get defeated, but I guess mentally defeated. And he was afraid of the other schools continuing to lose players in a situation like that. So what really happened there is that St. Paul was ahead 40, I don't know, maybe 46-0 or something like that. Probably beginning of the middle of the third quarter, and they were driving again, and they get down to about the 10-yard line. I think they fumbled, and South Central got the ball. So there, you fumble inside the 5, you probably go recover it. It probably had it around the 3 or 4 yard line. Well, I don't remember if it was the first or second play or what, but they decided to pass, try to catch St. Paul off guard and get a little room to get out of trouble. But the linebackers rushed the passer so hard that he just threw it up in the air in the vicinity of where a receiver should be. And St. Paul had 3 guys converge on it. One caught it and ran about 12 yards for a touchdown. There was nobody around him. There was nothing on that field to do. And I did not throw a flag because it would have been made a real farce of it. I mean, we could have hidden other things, but we did. And I looked right over to John. I said, what could I do? And I think that was the last score of the game. I mean, we took care of business after that. It also happened to me one time on a Saturday night game. Our regular referee, Rick Jeffrey, was not there, and so a couple of us, Keith and I, took turns. It was my turn that night. We talked to the guys in the locker room and said, "Here's what the potential is, and we're going to, take our time getting the ball ready for play and get the 25-second clock going because this is going to burn clock." And that'll be in South Central's favor, which I know how John is. He would prefer we do this. And so we all agreed that we do what we can to keep the game going quickly. We go to meet the South Central coach. He was an older gentleman, really, really nice. And he said, "Fellas, I'm going to ask you a big favor." He said, "So far this year, these guys score on the average of once every almost 3 plays." He said, "So our game plan is to use every second of that 25-second clock so that the quarters don't have as many plays in it and they just don't run us right out of here in county." And I said, "Coach, I understand. We'll do what we can to help you out there. I appreciate you asking." And so then we go to see John, and I said, "We're going to put it in play early to let the clock run as best we can, et cetera, et cetera." He goes, "Great. I was going to ask you to do that." So there we go. I mean, you think blowouts are easy for coaches to manage? Not at all. And John had a lot of them. And since that time, I usually look when I see that their score was like 48-0, 52-0, or something like that. But he was protective of the other coaches that were trying to build a program within the league, which was hard to do with Steve Ringholtz at Monroeville and John Livengood at St. Paul. And every once, in a while, as Western Reserve would come up with 2-3 years in a row where they'd have a good team. But it was, John and Steve kind of ran the league as far as wins and losses for a long time. And so it's two Hall of Fame coaches that competed on the same high school field where they played on and coached their whole varsity careers there. And one other guy from the Firelands Conference made it to the Hall of Fame, I believe, this year, and that's Lee Owens, who coached at Crestview in the late 70s and really early 80s. And I met Coach Lee Owens the first time. He was also the girls basketball coach, and that was back in the early days of me doing girls basketball. So I met him, and I knew him for a number of years. And best known in Northern Ohio as the Ohio State assistant that was able to talk the Big O, Orlando Pace, into coming to Ohio State. So great for John, great for the Firelands Conference, and congratulations. Enjoy your retirement as head coach, and you're going to stay at the school as the athletic director, and that's good for the entire league.
Yeah, and in closing here about John, I think, people don't really know how he is and how he really works. They're so, as with everybody, they get so tied up and, they hate winners, St. Paul wins all the time and they do this and they do that. And they just don't understand why John's programs are so good. And from a guy that's reffed every level of his program, I can tell you why. I remember talking to John about it one time, and he told me, and this stuck with me forever and ever, that in his eyes, the only games that are key to winning are on Friday night. Every other game and every other level is keyed as a practice and a preparation for Friday night. And that stuck with me forever. And I think that's why he is such a good coach and why obviously he's now in the Hall of Fame. So again, congratulations to John. And hopefully everything is going well, and he keeps up the good work as an athletic director. So, and I guess now we're on to topic 2, kind of one of my favorite topics. We talk about it in the book a little bit about how do you get better as a basketball official? Are you doing this stuff during the season? Are you learning there? Of course you are a little bit in the season. A lot of what we get better at is in the off season, and we put times into camps. We did that here in Norwalk for a lot of years, thanks to Don and putting on a great program for the Bay and bringing in guys from, boy, all over the place, and getting ready to go and teaching us little techniques. So as we lead into the next part of the show, the Basketball Officials Camp Talk with Don Nardecchia, we're going to be talking about some of the things we would be going over if we were putting on this camp, and little timely tips for guys to work on now so that they're ready in the fall and winter. So it's as we get started here, Don has a few topics that he'd like to talk about. The first topic is be ambidextrous. Don, ambidextrous?
Yeah, and that's something. Once you've become a decent official and you think your mechanics are pretty good, the summertime is the time to try something different, because it's hard to make a change. And we're not saying to make a change. We're just wanting you to get able to do things with both hands when you need. I'm talking about when you stop the clock. The open hand goes up. Okay. And if you're right-handed, you've probably done it your whole career with your right hand. If you're left-handed, you may have done it the other way. But this is a good time during these summer league games and whatnot to force yourself to use the other hand. If you're going to stop the clock or a fist up to stop it for a foul, if you're going to make the 10-second count coming out of the backcourt, you always use your right hand. Work to use the left hand a little bit. Your chop when you start the clock, same thing. Do it with your other hand. And I'll tell you, you'll be uncomfortable. When I finally tried to start doing those things, I felt as comfortable as heck. But the time to do it is in those games.
Sure.
Where else can you try it? With a real small crowd who doesn't really care. And those things come in handy to be able to use the other hand at times. If you're at the free throw line, if you're the official that's the center in a 3-man crew, if you're the trail that you're administering or watching the free throw shooter's feet and the action around the top of the key and stuff, you're also got to have the 10-second count there. But I would tell you to get used to doing with your hand away from the shooter's basket, which is going to, if you're out, to the side a little bit, that could make a difference of about 5 feet of peripheral vision. If you're using it on the hand towards the basket that he's shooting at, there's a chance he could pick you up out of the corner of his eye. And it's just, get used to it the other hand. And also when you're at the free throw line, if it's a second of 2, which I think the 1-and-1s, I'm trying to think if the 1-and-1's become obsolete somewhere. It might be the college game, which means high school's next, but you have to be ready to chop the clock. And you can do that with your offhand that you're counting with at the free throw line. Once you see that shooter's got the ball clearly in his hand and he's going to shoot it within 2-3 seconds, you can put your hand up to stop the clock and then chop it when the ball comes off of the rim and somebody touches it. Now, at one end, you're fine, but when you're in a situation where you might be reversed on the free throw line and you have to use your left hand, that's where you're going to need to be used to chopping time. And, I can give you what I found is a good tip and a way to get myself used to chopping time with my left hand is to, rather than tell your hand to chop, pull your elbow down, because then your hand's coming with, if you try to do the hand, you're going to have your hand out in all different ways. But if you pull your elbow down to your side and drop your hand all in one motion, it looks good and it's simple, and you get confidence doing that right away. If you're covering a throw in, if you're administering on the baseline, there's always a chance that as you're chopping time, that if somebody's going to throw the ball down the line, if you're the right side of the basket, you give them the ball, maybe you're backed up against the key and they want to throw across the key to somebody while you're chopping. Now, there's much chance of this happen, but it's there. So just to avoid the possibility when you're counting, count with your hand that's furthest from where he is, the opposite side from where you've just handed the ball. You can chop from that hand. You can put your other hand up to start the clock, but you chop, or if you're counting time down here, you're counting your 5 here, fine. Then you're not going to be reaching out a little bit and have the possibility of your hand hitting the ball. So that's another time when when you have that possibility. If you're giving the ball for throwing on the sideline, probably not as much chance they're going to do it. But I always, I never handed the ball across the body, and on the sidelines now you're bouncing it. Okay,
Right.
so bounce it and keep that offhand as the count hand, and the hand closest to the thrower in as your hand that you're holding the clock with. Uh, it'll feel awkward at first, absolutely it will, but you'll get it. And there's no better time to practice this stuff as when you're out working these practice games.
And that kind of leads into your next topic, as we were talking about earlier. Okay, we're handing the ball in, we're bouncing the ball. Boy, we got to keep our eyes on everybody that's on the floor. And, I think by using the alternate hand, getting yourself in a better position to see, violations of the the throw-in lane. I can't tell you how many questions that pop up on these boards and stuff where these young officials are going, well, can they do that? I mean, what if they stick the ball across the line, or, et cetera, et cetera? Boy, you got to be able to see that. And I think using the alternative hand really helps. What do you think about that, Jim?
You're talking about doing all this stuff, and Don had made mention while we talked earlier before we started our podcast about a lot of these guys are more worried about climbing the ranks than working on just the basic stuff to help them move up. And we were talking about, the one year when we had our first couple of meetings, younger official had approached me about how to move up. How do I get a full varsity schedule? I'm thinking, well, you're like your third year. It's like it's not a thing that's going to happen overnight where you're going to get 20 varsity games. I said, what you got to do is go to the game. You got to get your game done, pack your bag, whatever, lay it set out, whatever, go outside and watch at least half a game. You don't know what'll happen. I said, and it wasn't but a week later, same guy was doing the JV game before Don's game. My game happened to be canceled that night, and I went along with Don to watch. And wouldn't you know it, Don pulled that same old stunt about getting hurt and still getting paid for the whole damn game. And here this guy was wanting to know how to go about getting a full varsity schedule, when here it was practically thrown into his lap. Because the AD had come out looking around for him, and I ended up going out there. I didn't have my stuff, and thank God Don's the long-legged guy. Thank God his partner was about my size and had to wear his dang shoes. Had to take paper towels, shove it in the nose about almost 2 inches longer than mine. And it's just that little simple thing, working on them basic things that help you get moved up to the next level. And if he would have been there that night, who knows what would have happened for him.
He would have got the call. Yeah. And he was capable of working a pretty good game from what we had seen. And so that would have been a pass along to the assigner for the league with an endorsement for him.
Yeah.
And he just lost it. I got to tell you, I felt something snap in my leg, and I was sure as could be I heard it, like a huge snap of a big rubber band or something like that. And it was when a foul was being called by my partner, who, by the way, the guy whose pants he had, name was Gene Wochis. He was from the Cleveland area. He worked Mid-American Conference football for a long time. He was a linesman. Nice, really nice guy. And when I heard and felt that, I just didn't move. And my partner called the foul, so he was reporting it, but I was afraid to move somewhere. And so I slowly started to walk. It was like, whoa, Nelly, something's not right in there. And went over, and the trainer checked me real quick. And he's grabbed behind my knee. He goes, I know what it is. He said, you're done for the night, but you won't be done for long. So it took me in, and the AD was looking for Wayne. And I said, hey, Jimmy's here. He was supposed to be at St. Mary's tonight, and they got canceled. And so he said, did he bring his gear? And I said, no, but we can fix him up. So they did. And I was out enjoying Jimmy with ice on my leg shortly after that. And I was out for one complete week, and it was just some thin muscle that goes inside of the calf muscles, closer to the bone there. And they call it the jumping muscle. And I said, well, nothing lost.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of happened to me in Bowling Green, and I ended up roughing the second half with you guys, and then I was out for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But mine was more of a torn calf. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
But the thing that when Jimmy was telling his story about getting all the uniforms together, thank God he had some shoes to put on, or boy, he might have had to use those band shoes, And we don't want to get into that here.
There's the story from the book, folks.
That was early before the band shoes were invented.
Anyway.
No, but as we're doing all this, Don's got his leg. We go in the locker room and we're talking, and now we come out to start the second half. Don's at the far end of the bleachers. He got his leg propped up, got ice on it, and all of a sudden, we're getting ready to start the second half, and what the hell? The guy at the scores table, he's yelling, "Come on back! Come on back!" And I was like, "What's going on?" He points across the gym, and here's two girls up in the stand going at it. And it's like, what the hell? And they come down, and for some odd reason, that one girl, she shook herself loose from that policeman, and she took off back up that way to kind of finish her business. But that officer grabbed her, and put her arm behind. He put her arm behind her, and marched her out of the gym. And I turn and I look at Don down at the end. He's got his leg up, and he's just laughing his ass off. It's just,
Nardo? No.
It's just one of them times. Some goofy stuff.
Nardo's serious all the time. What are you talking
goofy
about?
Stuff we have no control over. Well, hey, I got a couple other items on the list here. One of them is one pet peeve I have when I see officials do this. They'll make an out-of-bounds call, and this happens a lot under the basket. They'll make an out-of-bounds call, and then they point towards the wall, which indicates the direction that the ball's going from there. They turn and look right at their hand, right at the wall, and it's like, what are you looking at? Keep your eyes on the players. You can go this way and keep your eyes on what's going on in the basket. All you're doing, you're not looking for the ball. You don't care where the ball is. You care about what those players are doing. And this is one of those situations where I've preached for years at our meetings that crazy things happen when you blow your whistle and the players are supposed to stop moving. That's where problems begin. Everybody pretty much knows the rules well enough to be a good official. But outside of the running clock time, stuff happens that put you in a predicament. So in this case, you're paid to control things between the lines. You're not paid to expect a paint job on the wall. You're not paid to run after balls. I mean, it's just common sense. Control what you're in charge of, not what you're not concerned with. And the same thing on a held ball situation. It's funny. I after so many years, jump ball is what we call it. I got into saying held ball pretty quickly, but the situation. Sometimes players are on the floor. Sometimes you're standing. They always have a grab on it, and they're yanking, and you blow the whistle. And what's the first thing I see sometimes with new officials? They blow the whistle, they put the signal up, and they look right over to the table. They're not watching what's right in front of them with
Mm-hmm.
two people pulling at a ball. And that's where things happen quick. When you're in a situation with a held ball, you got to get to that spot where it happened. If you're calling it, it's not far from you. Get right there and say, okay, it's over. Use your voice. It's their ball. Let go, whatever you need to do. Just be there. Use your voice, diffuse the situation, stay there until they both get up or however many are on the floor. See them all up. Don't worry about who's going to get the ball next, because you know what? They're not going to know. They're not going to, once you find out and everybody's up, then it's safe to look. And by that time, one of your partners has already looked over there and
Mm-hmm.
they're giving you the signal which way it's going or whatever. But get to that situation if you called it. If in a crew of three, if you're the second person close, first away from it, besides the person that called it, close in on it. Third person, watch. You're the traffic cop over the whole thing. Okay.
Right.
They're close. You've got the overall view. So don't be in a hurry to in a situation where there are players on the floor. After a foul, there's players on the floor. If you called the foul and it's in front of you, stay right there. Get them up. Use your voice again if you need to. Let them know you're there. The arrow will wait on a held ball. The people at the table telling you if it's a 1-1 or whatever. You don't need to know that until you know that the player's up and separated and anything is simmered down completely. Okay. Don't take your eyes off the players because a whistle's been blown.
Now, see, I most people don't know this, even though we worked together forever, and we would basically do our pregame in the car. You always said on the way out of the locker room, when we weren't picking on Jim, of course, be good dead ball officials tonight. And that's literally what you just talked about. Because if you're a really good dead ball official, you might be able to pick up a false double foul, which one of our partners.
That's in the book.
Yeah, that's it, baby. So I mean, that's one of those things. And actually, at the last one you have here, Don, which I personally am a big proponent of, seeing as this particular topic led to a lot of controversy a few years ago in a highly contested girls basketball game in the area from Norwalk and Bellevue, where if the trail official would have been doing a better job, the game probably would have been called better. So let's go over what a good trail official should be doing during play.
Okay, we're going to talk mostly about shots here and officiating the entire rebounding play. I see too many officials that are quick to head down court as soon as the ball comes off the rim.
Mhm.
Okay, so you see the white team's going to get the ball. Before that person even has solid possession, you've turned your head and you're running. So what happens here, and here's the problem, is that when one team grabs the ball, they're already pivoting to get ready to outlet or pass the ball down court. And as they turn, the official on the baseline quite often doesn't see the ball anymore. And as you're heading down the floor, you're turning your head on the ball. You can see, if you would have stayed put. Now, that's not the end. I didn't say officiate the entire rebound. I said officiate the entire rebounding play. You officiate it until there's an outlet pass. You officiate it until the other team leaves and the person can dribble it or they dribble away from it. But don't take off too early. You're paid to officiate. You're not paid to go down so you can take 3 seconds and catch your breath after you sprint down floor. And if you're leaving early, it's because you're probably not sprinting down floor. It's only 40 feet. You're doing, if you do 20-yard sprints, you'll never have to go that far, that hard on a basketball court. But hang in there, watch the entire play. That teams that are taking a crack at a quick steal, that's what you have to watch for. Make sure there are eyes on the play. Transition starts with so many people moving around. We need maximum coverage of getting the ball from the rebounding spot to the next spot, either a safe outlet or a long pass, or just start bringing it down. Make sure we get that coverage. Don't give up a couple of cheap fouls. Some teams that are going to test the officials, every time their opponent grabs a rebound, they're going to try and slap it away. If officials are lazy, they're not going to be looking for that. They're going to get a lot of those slaps, but your game's going to get terribly, terribly sloppy because he'll continue that until as an official, you make the adjustment. And obviously, if you're not doing it at the beginning of the game, it's probably an adjustment you don't know you need to make. Okay. Now, as a trail official, you've covered the rebound play. Looks like a fast break. Now you turn and go. And if you see, as you go, you still got to be looking over your shoulder to see what's coming. You got to pay attention to the players that are leading the play down the floor as that lead official. If it's a fast break, obviously you want to get to the baseline because the first thing they're going to try is get a layup out of it. If not, they'll pull it out and start the offense. So you need to get down there as soon as possible. Here's a tip. If the ball's going down the other side of the court from the side you're running down to cover it. And this tip is going to get you into position faster. And that means your eyes are going to be settled in your head. When we run, we're all the time, our head's moving, our eyes are moving. We want to be down where we get it fully focused. So what we do is we have you cut the corner. And in camps and stuff, I used to see officials that would, if they had paint or tracer paint on their shoes, you would see the same path that they run from the trail position to the new lead every time, straight line to the baseline, and then cut across towards the middle. So what we're telling you to do is start, and then once you realize what's going on and there's nobody that you're going to be jumping in front of to run, cut that corner and get over to the intersection of the end line and the near free throw lane line. And then you've got the old trail on the other side of the court. He should be coming down, following closely. You'll be ahead of it on the opposite side of your trail. Now you've got two-man coverage right off the fast break. And that's the big thing we didn't have with two-man, because you'd have one guy there and the other guy bringing up the rears. So, make your sprint when you need to make your sprint. Cut that corner and start working on it now. Don't go down and make a 90-degree turn unless there are players coming down on your side of the court. But usually there's going to be a couple of offensive players from somewhere, one going down the middle and one going down the opposite side. So if you can do that, start telling yourself, these summer games, shoot, I should have cut the corner on that. That's the first step to knowing to cut the corner when it's there fine. And once you make that happen and you look for that, you're going to find it's a lot easier. And take this from an older guy, it's a lot easier to get where you want to be on the baseline when a fast break comes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got one other tip on that too, Don. If you're the trail and you've watched the rebound, they kick it out for a complete fast break one-on-one. The ball's already past you at half court, and you're busting your to get down there. There's no shame in stopping at the free throw line and officiating those two players. The other two guys have the last 8 in the backcourt or wherever they happen to be. But boy, you have a lot of blocked charges back there. You have a lot of fouls, and you have a lot of missed calls by officials trying to beat those two guys who are already beyond you. As any good back judge would tell you, You still want to get there, but it's better to officiate the play. Jimmy, you have any extra tips on a trail?
It's just like you're saying. You're the now trail after the rebound. The other thing that you're looking to is seeing if somehow that you weren't in the middle of a switching stuff. That happens a little more often than you think. But as like us three guys, we would always take off down the court, get where we wanted to be, and if all of a sudden, you'd look over and there's Rick on the baseline. Rick, you're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be out, be the center guy, and it happened, and not to not you're not making a big deal out of it because you had it covered, and then you just readjust. And if it's not a fast break off this rebound, you come up, you see where the guys are, and then you just move over to the one spot where ball side, strong side. You adjust to it, no big deal. The only people that really know it are you guys out in the court.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
Right. There's one thing I wanted to add about officiating the entire rebound play, and it comes to free throws. And summer is the perfect time to work on this. Summer, you're probably going to be working two-man most of the time. The person that's in charge at the free throw line, if it's the center and a three-man crew with a trail on it too, you're a big part of the rebounding officiating crew. Okay, so what you do, you're usually maybe halfway to the sideline and maybe a step back away from the end line from being straight out the free throw lane. But when the shot goes up, take your nearest foot to the end line and take a lunge step that way. Slide step, take a step towards the basket, towards the rebounding. That's going to keep you from bailing out. You're going to give up. You're already standing there. So you take a half step forward. You're not going to lose any time getting the other way. You'll see if you're needed for that grab of the ball or misgrab or whatever, you've got a great view of it. If it's a two-man game, you take the step. If it's a three-man game, the person that's the center official takes the step. The trail official takes a step because he's that much closer to the end line. But it just makes you hold your spot to see what's going on with that rebound. Too many people just give up on the rebound and figure they got to get down court. And that's it won't hurt you a lot of the times, but when it hurts you, it hurts everybody on a crew.
We have any other closing comments about the basketball officials camp talk?
No, I said it's seen about the about this year being one of the, I guess you would call the points of emphasis that you hear the whistle, you get the ball to the nearest official, and we always would tell the kids that while we got out there, hey, you hear the whistle, get it to me or one of my partners. And I said, this stuff kind of goes back to, we talked about it, earlier this year when I had done a fifth and sixth grade game where the girl just dropped the ball and walked away. And the guy I was working with, I had him call her back over where I was and explain to her. And she kind of like had an attitude about it. I'm thinking, this attitude thing at that level, that ain't making it for me. And later on, she took the ball when I called traveling on her, and she slammed the ball down. Well, at this level, technical foul ain't going to be nothing. But if they're not on that court where they want to be, you've caught their attention. And you just gotta, because I'd be interested with that this year on how quick they pull a trigger for a technical foul for not getting the ball to the nearest referee.
Well, I think you're going to see. First of all, they have to give a warning. That's a delay of game,
Right.
and then after that, it's a technical foul that's assessed to the team, not to the player.
Right.
And there are two or three. And we'll go over these rule changes, but there's a lot of things where I think officials were hesitant to call technical foul, faking, getting hit during a screen or something like that. Somebody's flopping.
Mhm.
That's been a technical foul, but that's changed into the same thing. Warning, whole team, and then technical foul, team
Right.
foul. We'll touch on that. Just enjoy working the girls' games during the summer, the boys' games during the summer, but use it to get yourself better. Work on being ambidextrous. Keep your eyes on the players after a whistle. Officiate the entire rebound. Those are big things that will help your game come around in the fall. Uh, uh, and that and with that, I think we want to talk about the book just for a minute here before we
Oh
finish it up.
yeah, here we
And
go.
please hang because this is our finish is something we haven't done before, but very important to us.
Yeah, go out and grab the book if you haven't already. We have it at a special price, $16.49 on Amazon.com. Look us up, or if you happen to see one of us, you can even get it at a better price, and you get an autograph. So here we are. I mean, what do you think, Jimmy?
I think I had saw Denny Fultz, who was the original third man on this crew with me and Don. Finally got, I talked to him Monday down at the rec center, and I said, had Rick got you that book yet? And he said, no, he hadn't got it to me. I said, well, hell, we'll be off the best, sellers list by that time. And today, when I went in, I happened to see his son, who is doing college Division I ball. And as I was getting ready to leave, he come walking out after he had done some exercise, and all of a sudden, I looked at him, and he has the book in his hand, and he says, "Yeah," he says, "I got this." He said, "I got it." Rick ran out to the car, got it, and brought it back into me. So I kind of put him in the area where I thought you got to read this story. But Don and Rick were kind of beat me out here, shit faced. And like the one person you said earlier had, why you pick on Jimmy? I can take it. The other two guys are little sissy girls. But
But
yeah,
anyway,
right. Yeah.
Anyway, you got to know Jimmy to love him, right? Is that what we're saying?
All right. Well, they say if you don't joke with somebody, you don't like them.
Well,
I guess I was loved.
I got a nice note. A person I work with over to Clemson, she bought one. She said, "I'm going to read it, but I'm buying it for my daughter's father-in-law who used to referee in Ohio." So I got a note from her, a thank you from him. She sent it on to me and said, "Thanks for the book. I'm just now, getting into it." He said, "I've gone through the preface and the introduction, and it's really good, especially the part about the brotherhood. Tell Don, thanks for the nice note that he wrote in the front, and he personalized it to me. And he said he's really right about the brotherhood of officiating. And he said, just tell him I worked." She didn't know what level he worked in. "Tell him I worked the Mid-American Conference, and he had the years, and the Big Ten, and he had the years." The guy lives in Dayton. So I think I'll probably hear more from him when he finishes that up, or I'll ask Karen to have him, write a little review of it and make sure the review's posted. But, he knew, I kind of got an idea he knew what was coming.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a nice way to segue into our next segment, which is unfortunately part of life. And this is going to be our segment. It's the Three Blind Mice and the Officials' Tales. We're going to pay tribute to a couple of fallen brothers in stripes. It's a sad part of life, but something we all have to go through. And we're going to actually pay tribute to two guys that we both know. And I've worked with one of them. Don and Jim have worked with the other guy. And we're going to start off by paying tribute to Larry Hoffman, a longtime official and a really good friend to Don and Jim. I believe he brought Jimmy even into the fold. So, Jimmy, I'm going to let you start off by giving us your comments on Larry and what he meant to you.
Well, I had recently heard that Larry had passed away about 5-6 months back. And I finally got a hold of his wife and said, no, he's moved over to his daughter's house because everything was ground level. He didn't have to worry about getting up and down steps. But Larry, it was funny because I knew Larry through playing cards, and in the book, in the early pages of the book, I had put down that you gotta get that one connection and maybe two. And this night I had done some men's city league, and I was running late to get to the card game, so I just wore my officiating stuff. And I took my jacket, threw it over there, and sat down beside Larry. At that time, I did not know that Larry was an official, and he had probably in the neighborhood of 25 years of experience at that time. And he had asked me, he says, what are you wearing that for? I said, well, it's officiating the men's city league back in town. And he said, so you got your license? And yeah. And well, at that time, when Don and I were first starting out, the varsity officials were kind of in charge of getting JV to come along. Most cases, they rode together to the game, so you could talk to the varsity official about certain things, and on your way home, he could point out some other things that might help you out. And in my earlier years, when he was watching me officiate the JV game, on our way home, he says, you can't have rabbit ears. Because I tended to, tee up a coach or a player, and I had a quick trigger. I'll admit it. But he says, if you're thinking about sticking around for a while, you can't have that rabbit ear stuff. He said they'll eat you up. And like I said in the front part of the book, it's not that I wasn't able to hear your comments. It's just that I had to focus on the job I was out there doing. And I had made contact with his daughter, and we talked about getting together, and I wanted to get him a book. And I wrote a little thing in there for him and everything. And I got back from Florida around the first or second weekend of this month, and the following week, about midweek, I got a text from his daughter saying that he had passed away, and that he was looking forward to getting together with me and talk about some of the good old days, because Larry was the varsity official that was my partner that thought I was, I guess, good enough to work a game with him. And that game happened to be Norwalk High versus Edison. And you talk about running. I don't think I've ever run so much in my life. It was like the Las Vegas team back in the late 70s, early 80s was called the Running Rebels. And believe me, we did that. The following night, we worked together out at Western Reserve, and I do remember, well, I guess the old saying is, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. And I really wish that I would have been able to get with Larry and let him see the book and read it and, appreciate the things that he had done for me, little points to say, hey, do it this way, not that way. And it helped me out a lot. And the other thing, about when you're out there on the floor, don't get to where you're stuck with glue on your feet. And I can't tell you for sure if it was Larry or one of the other older officials that were around when I first started. had asked, had you ever seen a referee in a boxing match? They're always trying to get a better view of what's going on in front of them. Don't get blindsided. Don't get straight line. You know, it only takes that one person to run in front of you to block your vision, and that one thing will happen, and you can't see it, but everybody else in the gym seen it because they're up high looking down on it. But I truly am going to miss Larry. I plan hopefully sometime this week to get with his daughter and hopefully his wife to present him the book that I got for him. So thanks, Larry.
Don?
He was better known as Hound Dog in the earlier years. So
There you go. Nardo?
When I started, Jimmy had a couple years ahead of me getting certified, and when first few times that I went with Jimmy over to the meetings at Sandusky High School, the rules meetings, Larry always suggested we come stop down the road about a mile down Perkins Avenue at Noli and Bud's Tavern, and the three of us would go in there, and he'd tell us some things that would, hopefully help us down the road, and we just had a good time for another. We're at the rules meeting for an hour. We go down and spend an hour with Larry, and you felt good about it because, that's a rare picture of Larry Hoffman. He always had a smile on his face, always, always, always. And what Larry did in making a couple of young guys feel very comfortable with all these veterans in the room at the association meeting was an example to us to do something similar to what he did. And once we had a little more time, and we started doing a thing, especially when I was the rules interpreter, and when Les Gerken was the interpreter, and I was the mechanics interpreter. We started picking a spot to go after meetings, and Noli and Bud's was no longer there. And so we would go for a long time. We'd go to Chi-Chi's and watch Monday Night Football together and tell stories. And sometimes went another place over there. But it got to the point where we always, at the end of a meeting, I always said, tonight's Rule 11 discussion will take place at Chi-Chi's or at the 818 Club or wherever we kind of elected to go. And for those of you that aren't officials, there was no Rule 11 in the basketball or football rule books. That's just what we determined. Our Rule 11 was our after meeting discussion. And we did that a lot towards the end of our careers. And the other thing, talk about the brotherhood of officiating. Larry had a brother that lived in Galleon, and I went down Galleon one night to officiate. I don't remember who it was with. I don't remember who the other team was. It was in the old Galleon gym, which was big, and I loved it. It was on the second floor. That wooden floor was wonderful to run on. And I remember there was some type of an out of bounds play or something that was kind of strange, but I was the one that made the call, and I turned to run down the floor. They were getting ready, no press. They were just run down the floor. And as I was getting close there, right out of the stands, I heard, "That was a good call, Donnie boy." And it was like, what is he doing here? This is probably, I mean, we see Larry as some of the retired guys that would come to our banquets. We got invited him every second or third year. And, he made a few of them, but I knew right away who it was. And when I had a chance, when I made the turn, I glanced up there and he was still standing. So, it's amazing that a voice that you don't hear very often, you knew exactly, and you knew it because he was an official. So a great guy, one of the most likable guys. I think he and Jimmy Mashari, probably the most two likable guys we have had in our association in the many, many years that we were there. I hate to see him go. 88 years old. Besides an official, he was an award-winning truck driver for. He worked for I think the Erie County Highway Department, and he went to some national competition, a rodeo, a
Mhm.
driver's skill test type of thing, and he was the national runner-up. What? And I guess he was a pretty good card player.
Apparently.
Yeah. I think
Well,
I had to question sometimes because also in that card game, not only was he in it, his brother that was down in Galen from time to time would be there, but his older brother and his dad was in this card game, and I thought maybe they were, kind of switching the cards under the tables like the Three Stooges does. But
We
that was
better wrap up here
only a
because
rumor. That was only
I
a
see
rumor.
we're over an hour, and the StreamYard people are going to cut us off here pretty quick. So,
yeah, we got one more guy we
yep,
want to talk about
yep,
fast.
yep. Let's get him on here.
It's
Good old
Brett
Brett
Willoughby.
Willoughby.
And Brett was a guy that I knew, very dry sense of humor, but a great guy. He was an assigner for a lot of years. I had the pleasure of working with Brett once, and I'm not sure if I put it in the book or not, but we were working a girls' game, and the one team, the home team, was getting blown out, just incredibly blown out. And their coach was trying to spur on their team and get a technical foul at any, to get one, I think. And she kept yelling and screaming, standing on the chair. And I was in front of her handing the ball in, and she yelled in my ear. She said, "Boy, your partner sucks." And I looked over at Brett. He looks at me, and before I could turn and do anything about it, she looks at me and she goes, "And you suck too." And as she said that, I teed her up. He sat her down, and we get through the game, and we're sitting there in the locker room, and Brett goes, "Boy," he goes, "You're not taking care of your partner there." He goes, "She told you that I sucked, and you didn't tee her up." And I said, "Well, I can't tee her up for telling the truth." And he started laughing, and he patted me on the back, and but that was Brett, He was such a good guy. It's sorry to see him go, and unfortunately, he died the same day as our last
Larry.
guy. Oh yeah, it's Larry. So,
Yep.
guys, Don, Jim, you guys have anything about Brett?
The one thing that I with Brett was, and I was working Tiffin Columbia at Bellevue, and that night both teams were like Bellevue was in first place, Tiffin Columbia was in second place. Place was jam packed. If it wasn't bad enough to get the things going for the varsity game, JV game goes double overtime. Well, we're up and down the court, and from time to time, there was a couple questionable calls. We're only working a two-man game where I believe this should have been a three-man game. But I took off on a fast break and got myself positioned right under the basket. And the big kid from Tiffin fakes up, and he goes flying by. And the guy coming from behind, just kind of a barely top of the head. And I'm headed towards the scorer's table, and the coach is, what the hell? No big deal. And all of a sudden I hear my partner's whistle. And that's when a little bit of hell broke out. So now the kid I had teed him up earlier for hanging on the rim. Coach didn't have no problem with that. But now the kid's done. And Bellevue now has a pretty good control of the middle now with the big boy out. But as we got down to the end of the game, Bellevue went to throw the ball in bounce. And like a team that's trying to get the ball back, they quick try to foul him. Well, the kid from Bellevue kind of squatted down. So as the kid from Tiffin is trying to foul him, he's grabbing for him. Now he's got him around the head. And my partner comes out, has a intentional foul. As he's going to the table, I'm watching the rest of the kids. And all of a sudden I see him, his face kind of jerk away like, and I'm like, what the hell happened? Well, all of a sudden he's looking down at the baseline, waving the cop, come on down, like Bob Barker would say. So he comes and he kind of looks up where he thought it might have came. Nobody wanted to give anybody up. So my partner, okay, from here to here, out the door you go, blah, blah, blah. Well, as after the game, the one guy decided he's going to come back in and tell my partner what a shitty job he did. And then he turned his attention on to me. By this time, I've already taken my whistle off and wrapped it around my fist. I'm thinking, you get by that cop, and you might as well be picking yourself off the floor. The cop turned him around after he'd warned him a couple of times, put handcuffs, out the door we go. The following week, I got switched off a game that I was supposed to have Tiffin again, which I called to say, hey, let's get me off that game because these people are be fresh in their mind yet. So they switched me off, and lo and behold, it's Brett. Brett's from Tiffin, and he had the conference over that way with Seneca East, Tiffin, Calvert, Fostoria, St. Wendland, Old Fort, and all them schools.
Yeah, a little smaller.
And I get there, and I put my stuff in my locker, and as I'm doing this, all of a sudden Brett comments, hey, he says, what'd you think of them two clowns that had the Tiffin at Bellevue game here a couple of weeks ago? And I slowly turned my head and looked at him, and I called him a a-hole. And I said, you knew who had that game 10 minutes after it started, or after it's done. And he starts laughing. Then he proceeds to tell me the guy that they took and put cuffs on was not only a football referee, he was also the president of the Booster Club. Now, that shows you a lot of class, I guess, but that's just about what with Brett, you know. So
Yeah, good guy. I knew of him, not by name, because in the 70s, our factory team used to play in a district industrial tournament, and one year it was over at Fostoria, which is just down the road from Tiffin, and Brett umpired a couple of games and seemed to be maybe the umpire in chief there, but he was you say he's a dry sense of humor, pretty factual, no nonsense guy when he's got a bunch of dried up ball players playing a softball tournament. He knew how to handle them. He didn't take any crap. Well, then, I 4 years later, 5 years later, I started doing JV ball and met him then. No, great guy. When you said, Rick, dry sense of humor, it was a noteworthy dry sense of humor, because when he said something, it was usually 200% funny. He just kept quiet, and boom, there it was.
Oh yeah, that was Brett. So, all right, guys, I want to do I'd like to have everybody, if they would, let's observe 20 seconds of silence in honor of our brothers in stripes that have passed. These two guys, everybody that's passed so far, say a little prayer if you need to for the family. I'm sure they appreciate it. Okay, guys, if you have something to drink, let's raise our glasses and toast these men.
I should
Here's
have.
to you,
Sorry,
brothers.
guys. I'll
you
salute
to
him.
don't have
brothers.
one?
And that concludes our show for today. I would like to say, on closing, I know this is a little bit long. We're taking some sabbaticals in between because it is summer, and probably every couple of weeks we're going to do a show. So that's probably why this one's a little long. We do have some very exciting shows coming up. We're going to have some special guests, some special referees coming in, some other folks. So follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and we'll keep you updated on those special times. We may even do one live. Who knows? So, and we'll have another story time or two, I'm sure. So, guys, you have anything to say in closing?
Just get off the referee's back, people. And I'm not just saying that, you know, I think we officiated in the time that people kind of gave us a lot more respect than they do now. And
I agree.
This is going to get to a point where, hey, your children and grandchildren ain't going to have nobody around. So let's start picking them out of the stands and see what you really know about the game. Here's a whistle. Here's a T-shirt. You know, if you're so good, show me how to do it.
Hey, Don,
I'd be more than happy. I said, you know, how many times, things happen like that? And I kept saying, the last year when I definitely know it's going to be, I'm going to get with the guy that has the camera that he's, recording the game for the coach, that keep your eye on me. If something happens, I will take my shirt off and take my whistle and give it to the fan that, you know, or better yet, come out there with that invisible dog on a leash and no disrespect to any people that are blind, or they just with my tin cup and ask for money because you've always said I was blind. So here's
just
your chance to. Yeah,
just
it's
one
the left eye. The left eye. The left
Coach
eye.
K bought that.
Yeah.
It's in the book.
It's in the book.
Yeah, it is. It's in the book.
It's in the book. Go ahead, Don. What do you got to say as we close here?
This time of year, we're not experts in baseball. I love baseball, but football and basketball will be here before you know it. We're prepping. I think we're going to have a couple of exciting announcements for guests that are going to spend some time with us, and we'll definitely get that information out there to you. So thanks for sticking with us. You know, if you subscribe and give us a like and subscribe to the website, you'll know whenever we post a new one. So enjoy your summer like we have and like we will continue to do. And look for us about the end of the month. I would think maybe we'll have a just before 4th of July. We'll have a show with fireworks or something, or maybe we'll talk about fireworks.
Hey, don't be afraid to comment about something. Maybe there's a certain topic that you'd like to have us talk about.
Sure, especially how Jimmy's so unapproachable. That'd be great.
Yeah. No. That's did we have that in the book? It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
No, I don't think we did that one.
This guy. Nope, this guy. Right there. That guy. Don was talking to that guy right there with the hat on. Yeah, you. Who? Your feet don't fit no limb.
Have a good one, folks, and we'll see you soon.
Good night, gentlemen and ladies.